Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm Grandmaster96, and today I'm bringing you part 1 of my Age of Empires 2 military guide. Today I'm going to give you a brief introduction to all of the standard land, military units, and technologies available in the Dark and Feudal Ages. By the end of this video, you should have a basic understanding of how most of the military units in the Dark and Feudal Ages work. You should also be equipped to figure out how well one type of unit should perform against another. Please note that this video is by no means an exhaustive strategy guide. It is meant to be a basic introduction to some of the military concepts in this game. Alright then, let's jump into things. In the Dark Age, you only have access to one military building, and that's the barracks. From this barracks, at this point, you can only build one unit, and that's the militia. Militia are extremely weak, and because of that, they will almost never make a bulk of your army, and you should almost never build them in mass. The most common use of the militia is building 3 of them in the Dark Age and using them to harass your opponent early in the game. Let's take a closer look at our militia to get a basic understanding of unit stats. All units in Age of Empires 2 have hit points, attack, armor, and range. The amount of damage one unit does to another is calculated by subtracting a unit's armor value from an incoming attack, and then subtracting that resulting value from the unit's hit points. But as you can see, there are 2 numbers listed for armor. So which number is used? Well, there are 2 types of attack and armor in Age of Empires, melee and pierce. The left-hand armor number is the unit's melee armor, and the right-hand number is the unit's pierce armor. In general, melee units deal melee damage, and ranged units deal pierce damage. There are a few exceptions to this rule, but we won't get into them in this video. So as you can see, our militia has 0 melee armor and 1 pierce armor. As a quick side note, regardless of if a unit's armor outweighs an enemy attack, a unit always receives a minimum of 1 damage from an enemy attack. Now that we've covered militia and the basic unit stats, let's jump into the Feudal Age. In the Feudal Age, we gain access to the archery range, the stable, and the blacksmith. We'll start again at the barracks. Unit upgrades are a universal concept in Age of Empires. Most units can be upgraded upon reaching a new age to a stronger version of themselves. As we can see here, the swordsman line, which starts with the militia, can now be upgraded to the men-at-arms. Men-at-arms have more HP and attack than the militia, and are thus more dangerous. The other unit that we gain access to in the Feudal Age is the spearmen. Spearmen are slightly weaker in terms of stats than the swordsmen, however, they are a trash and a counter unit. They deal bonus damage to cavalry units. Let's unpack those 2 terms real quick. Trash units are units that do not cost gold to produce, and they are generally weaker than units that do cost gold. As we saw here, the man-at-arms is statistically stronger with more attack and armor, whereas the spearman, while being statistically weaker, costs no gold to produce. It only costs food and wood. Counter units are specialists. They are excellent at killing the select number of units to which they deal bonus damage, but they perform rather poorly against anything else. Spearmen are the counter to cavalry. Now that we've covered those, let's look at tracking. Tracking is an infantry upgrade that provides +2 line of sight to all infantry units. Most military buildings in Age of Empires 2 provide you with access to upgrades that affect all of the units produced from that building. Tracking is an example of one of those upgrades. At the archery range, we can build archers and skirmishers in the Feudal Age. Archers are your basic ranged unit. They have low HP and no armor, but they have decent range and attack. Skirmishers, like the spearmen, are both a trash unit and a counter unit. Skirmishers counter archers because of their high pierce armor, and because of the bonus damage that they deal against archer units. In this instance, archer units does not necessarily mean this unit here called the archer. It does include that unit, but archer units means all units with the archer armor type. This includes skirmishers, archers, cavalry archers, and most other ranged units. In the Feudal Age, the only cavalry unit that we have access to is the Scout. Scout cavalry line is the last of the 3 standard trash units, the first 2 being the Spearman and the Skirmisher. However, unlike the first 2, the Scouts are not a counter unit. They have high mobility, decent attack, 0 melee armor, and 2 pierce armor. Bloodlines is the Feudal Age stable technology. It grants all mounted units an additional 20 hit points. Bloodlines is extremely important if you want to use mounted units as the bulk of your army. The final military building we gain access to in the Feudal Age is the Blacksmith. The Blacksmith is an extremely important building because it grants you access to technologies that upgrade the attack, armor, and range of all of your units. Let's walk through these upgrades. Forging grants +1 attack to infantry and cavalry units. Scale mail armor grants +1 normal, which is melee armor, and +1 pierce armor to all infantry. Scale barding armor does the same thing for cavalry. Padded archer armor does the same thing for archers and cavalry archers, +1 and +1 defense. And then fletching gives all ranged units +1 attack and +1 range. So which of these upgrades should you get first? You might not be able to afford all of them, and if you can only afford a few, which are most important? Well, for ranged units, you always want to get the attack upgrades first because they provide you additional range. For melee units, you want to get the defense upgrades first because they will allow you to survive more arrows while you try to close the distance with ranged units. Getting these upgrades is extremely important and you want to get them as early as you can. If possible, you should research the essential upgrades, attack for ranged and melee defense for melee units. You should get those before you even enter combat, if at all possible. I cannot emphasize just enough how vital these upgrades are, but I will try to do so with an example. One of the main reasons skirmishers are such a strong counter to archers is the fact that they only take 1 damage per shot from an archer because of the 3 pierce armor that they have. However, if the archer gets the +1 attack upgrade, they'll now deal 2 damage a shot. So initially, it would take an archer 30 shots to kill a skirmisher, but with +1 attack, it reduces that number of shots by half, killing the skirmisher in 15. But if the skirmisher is equipped with the +1 defense upgrade, the balance of power is restored, and it will still take an archer 30 shots to kill a skirmisher. I hope this example illustrates just how important the blacksmith upgrades are. If you and your opponent have equivalent armies, whoever has more blacksmith upgrades will hold a distinct advantage. Now that we've talked over all of the units available in the Feudal Age, let's briefly cover the military dynamic of this age. In the Feudal Age, your economy will not be large enough to field a diverse army, so you have to choose usually 1 unit to make up the bulk of your army. In team games, the 2 strongest and most common combinations are lots of archers from the archery range, or building a decent number of scouts from the stable. The reason that these are the 2 strongest and most common unit choices is because archers and scouts are the most diverse units in the Feudal Age. They deal the most damage to the most types of units. Not only that, but archers provide a natural transition to crossbows in the Castle Age, and scouts provide a natural transition to knights in the Castle Age. So, I hope you feel like you have a better understanding of most of the common military units and technologies available in the Dark and Feudal Age, and I hope this information brings you greater success on the battlefield. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe, and if you have any questions relating to Age of Empires, please put them in the comment section below. I would love to answer them. I'm Grandmaster96, and as always, thank you so much for watching.